Hi everyone, Carter Krishnar here for Beyond the 90, and I wanted to speak really briefly about a headline I saw in the New York Times, or I guess it's an article from The Athletic, where Arne Slot claims that Manchester City versus Liverpool is at the same level as El Clásico, which historically, obviously, it's not. There were some great Manchester City versus Liverpool matches of the early 1970s. In fact, Manchester City during that period is the only team in the history of the First Division in England to have gone into Old Trafford against Manchester United and won more than 4 straight seasons. Brighton had the chance to actually equal that record a few weeks ago, but they either drew or lost at Old Trafford. I think they lost, actually. Ruben Almiron's turnaround. But historically, nothing like it. It doesn't have the political implications. It doesn't have any of that stuff. But Liverpool and Manchester, by the way, are closer geographically than Dallas and Fort Worth are. You may not know that. Many Americans don't know that if you've not been to the region. They are actually extremely close. There are some places in between them, Rurnikarn, Wigan. There are a few places in between along the Mersey River that are kind of rural and different culturally, so you don't have the kind of urban agglomeration that you do with the DFW Metroplex or with like the sprawlish American metropolitan areas. But they are extremely close to one another. And I have to say, from 2017, well, let's say from the time Jurgen Klopp got to Liverpool, starting with that first game against Pellegrini's Manchester City, where he really kind of outfoxed Pellegrini, and Manchester City were having all kinds of trouble breaking the press. Up until this past season, it has been not only the ultimate derby in English football, there have not been matches anywhere in the world played at the same level as Manchester City versus Liverpool. Every single match, whether it was in the league, obviously played twice in the league, home and home. They played in Europe in the 17-18 season, epic tie in Europe. Obviously, best remembered for the attack on the Manchester City bus as they pulled into the parking lot in Anfield. I have some thoughts about that, but I'm not going to express them in this video. And then some meetings in cup matches, a FA Cup semifinal, very famous FA Cup semifinal. There was a League Cup match, and that League Cup match was really significant in 2022 because it was the first kind of club football match at a high level played after the conclusion of the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. And so many people said to me after that match, my goodness, we love international football for what it is, but my goodness, we saw a match between Klopp and Guardiola played at this level that the international sides that don't train together are kind of a mishmash of players, a level that they can never reach, which I think is absolutely correct. The football spoke for itself. So the trajectory of this derby has been interesting because even though Manchester City has been winning the bulk of titles in the Premier League, and obviously the last 8 titles in England have been won by one of these two sides, although I think Arsenal is probably going to run away with the title this season, which means that this era is probably ending, this Liverpool-Manchester City era. But they have not only have they split the last 8 titles, 6 for City, 2 for Liverpool, but oftentimes you'll see tactical trends. You'll see things come out of the matchups between between these two sides specifically. I think Guardiola felt like he needed to sign Kyle Walker at Manchester City because he saw, okay, I need a guy who can tuck inside and play as kind of an extra playmaker, but then also has the closing speed and the football knowledge to play right back after he had played Klopp twice in the 16-17 season and had trouble against Klopp in that season. In one of the matches, Liverpool flat out won. High pressing, Manchester City's fullbacks, who at the time were Asania and Gael Clichy, could not handle that. The high press that came up at the time, Adam Lallana was an incredibly technical player for Liverpool that was creating this problem for City's fullbacks, in addition to the sort of trouble that was caused for them by Mane and Bobby Firmino. They didn't have Mo Salah yet. So I think he signs Kyle Walker as a reaction to that. Liverpool, and then Manchester City signs Ed Harrison, who we've talked about before, that same summer. Liverpool, as a reaction, goes out and gets Virgil van Dijk, so they have a stopper in central midfield, even though during the in central defense, even though during Liverpool wasn't getting torn apart as easily by Manchester City as everyone else. So then you have immediately a match after Van Dijk is signed. In early 2018, Manchester City comes in flying high, unbeaten in the Premier League. Unbeatable, unstoppable. They would go on to have 100 points that season, a record. They go to Anfield, and Liverpool methodically tears them apart. Now, City come back and get 2 goals late to make it 4-3 and make it a little nervy. And that's when you saw the usefulness of another player that Guardiola had signed, Bernardo Silva, as kind of this guy that could drift between the lines and kind of pull apart some of Liverpool's defenses. Liverpool then signs Alisson. It's a response to Ed Harrison. 2 best goalkeepers in the world, very similar traits. I prefer Ed Harrison. Obviously, the Brazil national team preferred Alisson. I think Alisson's probably a better shot stopper, but I think Ed Harrison just revolutionary with his feet, as we've talked about previously. And then it just goes back and forth. 18-19, they run each other close. 98 points and 97 points. 98 for City, 97 for Liverpool. Blow everyone else away. The matches between those two sides that season were played at such a high level. Such a high level. Now, of course, the match at Anfield is remembered for Riyad Mahrez's penalty miss. And then City wins at the difference in the title race, wins at the Etihad by a millimeter. John Stones clears goal line clearance, 1 millimeter. And you would see repeatedly in these matches after Mo Salah was signed that summer of 2018, signed in 2017. You would see time and again with Salah, he could make something out of nothing. City could be completely controlling the game, suffocating the game, have Liverpool on the back foot. There's an outlet ball to Salah. He beats 2 City defenders, goal. He's in on goal, he scores, or he lays it off for Mane or whoever. And the Salah signing was maybe a response to City's dominance of possession against Liverpool. Then you get to the 1920 season. Liverpool runs away with the title. We have the COVID break. But then when we get back from COVID, Liverpool has won the title. But there is a match where City, Raheem Sterling, particularly brilliant in this match, former Liverpool player, just punishes them and says, you know what, we're going to be back for you next season. You may have won it this year, but we're going to be back for you next season. The next season was City's season, the 2021 season. Liverpool struggled at times that year. Salah had a real kind of lull around the holiday period. But then the 21-22 season, epic, just epic, goes down to the final day. Their matchups were played at such a high level. And look, I think Pep Guardiola would acknowledge this. That basically City hit the levels they did, which are the same levels that the United teams in the late 90s hit, or I would say the United teams. Not really a 93, 94, I think 95 when they got pushed by Blackburn, and Blackburn won the title, and Cotton had been suspended for part of that year, and then the 95, 96 season when Newcastle pushed them. That's what spurred Manchester United to be the force they were in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Guardiola would be lying if he didn't say Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp pushed Manchester City to being that co-best team in Premier League history with those United teams, because it was that push, it was that muscle, it was that need to beat Liverpool, that need to find that extra wrinkle. It also forced Pep Guardiola to tactically innovate in a manner that maybe he would not have, because it wasn't about staying ahead of the field. It was about staying ahead of Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool. And more often than not, when they met head-to-head, Liverpool, it was either a draw or Liverpool won. Pep's head-to-head record against Klopp, both in Germany and in in England is about as poor as it is against any other manager in the world. The one exception actually being not Jose Mourinho, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, believe it or not. Solskjaer had a way of beating City. Might have been the Derby aspect, because I can say the same thing about King Kev when he was a Manchester City manager. He seemed to always beat United as City manager. And of course, he had his own grievances with United, not only being a great Liverpool player, but what had happened in the 95-96 season when he was the manager of Newcastle. And it fell apart for them late in the season. And Fergie's mind games, Sir Alex's mind games got to Keegan that year. So, yeah, unbelievably high-level match. It's not El Clásico. It doesn't have all the political implications El Clásico does. But in terms of the level of football, it's been better the last 10 years than El Clásico has been.